regarding price controls, if they were put into place, let's say they were put into place tomorrow, how would that impact your store and the community you serve?
If you start saying we're going to do this to the pharmaceutical corporations and the grocery businesses that sell food, you're basically dictating what they can make. And so if you're going to take a really tight margin and make it worse, you're going to see massive food deserts. You're going to see so many food deserts that even the bigger guys that move into those areas won't be able to build stores fast enough.
Right. And in your experience, have you ever seen a place where price controls work out well for customers? Or, is it usually just it's a very different story?
You just don't see it. I mean, because it's impossible. I mean, no government knows the exact cost of every business. And there's no way to start, unless you live maybe in a communist country where you can start dictating what pricing is. And at the end of the day, it's about market. What the market can bear? And the people decide that.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential. And here's your host, Jeff Crank.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the American Potential Podcast. I'm Heather Andrews, your guest host for today, and the Western State Regional Director for Americans for Prosperity. Now, I want you to picture your favorite home-cooked meal. Maybe it's a rich, slow-cooked pot roast with veggies, a gooey lasagna straight from the oven, or those juicy burgers fresh off the grill. Whatever you love, getting those ingredients means a trip to the grocery store. So where do you head to stock up? A big box store, a neighborhood market, or maybe it's a weekend stop at the farmer's market. And if you're like me, it's a mix of all of the above. But lately, as we're strolling the aisles, you've probably noticed that prices are creeping up. Some say the solution is government regulation, putting limits on what stores can charge to make groceries more affordable for everyone. But will that really solve the problem? If prices are controlled, what does that mean for variety and quality? Will our shelves stay full, or could we face fewer options and lower quality? And what about the small neighborhood markets? How can they compete with big chains if they're locked into rigid pricing? Today, we're going to dive into these questions with our guest, Doug Sprankle, owner of Sprankle's Neighborhood Market in Pennsylvania. Doug's store is more than just a place to grab groceries. It's a community hub hosting events year-round. So let's hear his take on the challenges facing local markets today and what price regulations could mean for shoppers, store owners, and communities alike. Welcome, Doug.
Hey, thanks for having us, Heather. Appreciate it. Yeah, I look forward to talking about pricing and how we can make it better.
Wonderful. And then speaking of competition in the marketplace, you're no stranger to high stakes showdowns. So in fact, I've heard you and your family were actually on the Family Feud. Is that right?
We were. We were on this year's showing.
No way. Well, that's one of my absolute favorite game shows of all time. I'm sure others as well. I'm very envious. And so before we dive into the grocery store aisles, then tell us, what was it like going head to head with strangers and facing off on national television?
You get one shot at it when they put you on the show. It is live filming, and the questions come fast. And Steve's a great host, very funny, and in front of all those people, it's a live audience, and you get one shot at it, and there's no second take. So you do your best and hopefully make it to the money, which we did. And we used that opportunity to host an event and a live viewing of that show with our guests and our customers in our local areas. And we raised over $20,000 for Salvation Army.
Oh my gosh, that's even more amazing. That's so fantastic. So you have to tell me, I've always wondered, what's one answer that you or your family gave that looking back that makes you think, oh my gosh, what were we even thinking? Or was it just everyone gave the most amazing answers the entire time?
Well, I think I gave every wrong answer on the first game, the first show. And then we did last month at the end. They put me up there and Steve's like, Doug, you realize you missed every answer. Why are you up here? And then we did the show. So it was live. It was very wild, but it's one of those things where, you just gotta kind of dumb down your thinking process. Cause if you think of the most abstract answer, you usually get it wrong. So, it was stuff like that happened constantly to us.
Oh, shoot. Well, and then is there anything surprising about how Family Feud works behind the scenes that viewers would never guess?
It's a lot of work. When they fly you down, you're working right away, and it's a long, long day. So usually get there around 7, and it goes into the late hours. And if you're winning, you stay on. So you do up to 5 shows in one day if you continue to win. But it's just a lot of work. You have to watch at least 2 or 3 shows before they actually put you on, if they put you on. Sometimes people don't make it. I mean, you can make it through the original interview, which we did ours during COVID, so we all had masks on. It was in our family office during, I think, 2021. Yeah, 2021. Then a year and a half later, they called us and said, "Hey, we want to put you on." But, it's the whole time it's an interview. When you get down there, the way you're dressed, the way you're talking, the way, you interact with your family is a big deal. And, just the whole process is geared towards trying to produce the best product possible.
Well, that's awesome. Well, congratulations to you and your family. That's really exciting. And again, very envious. I love watching that show. It's such a fun one. And I'm sure, Steve Harvey's been such a great host to watch as well. All right. Well, let's dive into this. So give us the scoop on Sprankle's Neighborhood Market and what sets your store apart, and what's it like for the person that walks through those doors?
So we actually started our stores, originally started with my father and mother 26 years ago with the first purchase of Leechburg and Katanning. And then I purchased the Saxburg location to give us 3 stores in our chain during COVID. So during COVID is 2020, the spring, and we had 8 weeks to open up. We opened up, and for the first year and a half, we all wore masks. There was really no direct human contact. And so to build a community store with no direct contact to your community was very difficult. So we did that through our social media influence and through community-driven events. And, ever since then, we've been, really just pushing that idea. And we have a great crew here. Last year, we were recognized as one of the top 25 independents in the country. And then this year, we won Entrepreneur of the Year for Butler County. So as we continue to reinvest in the community, focus on the community, promote events, and try to get as many people to take part in our culture, our store, it's been a really pleasure working with all the people and the community members to make it happen.
That's so great to hear. Congratulations on those accolades as well. And I mean, owning a grocery store is definitely no small feat. And it sounds like what inspired you to dive into the business was because it was a family kind of run thing that has it passed down just from your parents, or was it even before your parents were in business and not business?
So my parents are the American dream. They started out as working part-time jobs, and then ended up being full-time jobs. So mom was a bank teller, then became a loan officer. My father started out as a butcher and worked his way up to national sales manager for one of Fleming back in the day, one of the largest food warehouses. One time there were 7 in the nation. And then he had a chance to buy a store, old fashioned, give the guy a check every week, and 10 years to pay it off. That's how he bought his first store. He didn't have backers. He didn't have family money or influence. He literally started out working in the back and worked his way to the front, and eventually unreachable. And then he brought us up in the business. My brother was fully invested the whole time. I left for a while and pursued other opportunities. But, for me, it was about, working with your family and being around the community. And that's why I came back from my other career, which was selling high-end Western boots in Washington, D.C. So that was a wild career for a while. But my wife and I actually work together here at the store to manage it with our team. And, every day we try to make it better.
That's so great. Family, it sounds like, means a lot to you. And that's amazing. And yeah, it definitely sounds like your parents have lived the American dream, their version of what the American dream is, to be able to do that and to have the success that you've had. So congratulations. And it sounds like, you host some really unique, you're welcome. You host some really unique events throughout the year. So tell us more about what kind of events you do put on. And then how did you get the idea to turn your market into a community gathering place?
It actually, so when we reopened our Leechburg location under the new style, new banner, and new look, we had an event as a Renaissance Festival. And we just really like how when you bring local businesses together in a physical format with local vendors, artists, and culture in general, it really creates a moment for the customer. And so when we started doing that for our stores, we noticed there was more and more influence, not just in the store location, but into the wider county and region. So we thought, man, it's a great opportunity to show off what we do, and reinforce our communities, and also create opportunities for new businesses to enter the market. And we started off with the Renaissance Festival. We hosted an Oktoberfest. We've done Western festivals. They're always like a theme. We do our own holiday we created was called Beer Giving. So we had extra beer left over from the Oktoberfest. So we gave away beer in 1 gallon jugs for Beer Giving, which was right before Thanksgiving. And, all these micro events that we host, we've owned the equipment and added to our equipment list so that the cost isn't a lot for us. And we're to the point now where we have a full-time event coordinator that hosts all these events. And I think up to 68 in the last 3 to 4 years is what we're up to, whether it's us directly hosting the event or participating in. And so our brand has been synonymous with community events, and it's helped us really get that core value of, hey, you know what? We are service-hearted people. Our number one job here is to service the community, just selling cans of corn. It's providing opportunity for small businesses to rise. And as they say, a rising tide raises all ships.
Wow, that's incredible. So yeah, moving on to like pricing. So pricing can be tricky, especially with like a lot of the fluctuating costs that we've had. You mentioned COVID, and I'm sure you've seen that affect pricing. How do you approach pricing at your store to try to keep things fair for both your business and your customers?
When people start talking about, price fixing or setting certain standards for pricing, the issue is that first off, we're a small store. So our buying capacity is nothing of Walmart's or somebody else's. So naturally, competitively speaking, Walmart has one of the biggest buying groups there is. And so they can really set their own buying pricing and therefore set the retail pricing. So for us, when we start hearing setting pricing, what it does is it creates a margin problem. The warehouse charges a fee, obviously. The original, the warehouse buys from the producer, whether it's corn, whether it's whatever it may be. The warehouse buys it, they mark it up, they put it on a truck, they charge you a fuel fee, which people don't realize either. They charge you a fuel fee and a percentage fee of what you buy, send it to you. And then you have your POS system, which is, the point of sale, your computers that run all the sales and everything else that manages, anywhere from our store in Saxburg, I think has 45,000 SKUs, where Leechburg might have 30 and Katanning might have 16, but it's all different items. And so every week there's thousands and thousands and thousands of prices going up and thousands of prices staying the same, thousands going down, plus sales. Then you mix in different long-term sales or short-term sales, your ad sales. There's a person that manages all that at our store with to pay to do that. So not only do we have the cost from the warehouse, we have the cost of the management of the pricing itself, plus the point of sale, plus we do all those costs and everything else. It works out to a very low margin. It's one of the lowest margin businesses out there is the grocery business, especially independent, smaller guys like us. And there's even smaller ones. So when you hear people start talking about, oh, well, we're getting price gouged. Well, it's not getting price gouged. It's because the fuel went up. It's because production went up. The cost of machines gone up. I mean, tractors alone. I have a little farmette. My tractor that I wanted to buy a couple of years ago went from 80,000 to 120. And, the retail on that product didn't go up. It's just the mechanics to do that. Plus your fuel went up, your feed went up, everything else went up. And so those costs that are because of overall themes of cutting back on our own use of fossil fuels, our own use of our own minerals and everything else has created a need to import from other countries, which has driven up the base cost for farmers. And, the base cost trickles into the trucking, trickles into everything else. And so our pricing is set not by what we want to choose it at. We set it based on the market. And if we're too out of line, well, we're going to be out of business. We have all the competition in place. We have Aldi's, we have Target, we have online, we have Amazon, we have Sam's Club. Everybody's already in the market that's competing in that food spectrum. And so the market dictates what the pricing is.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm sure during the presidential race, you've heard a candidate talking about stopping grocery stores from price gouging. What went through your mind when you heard that?
It goes back to, people like to say things when they're running for offices. I don't care if it's a local mayor, the whole way up to presidential. They say things they think is going to get the biggest bang for their buck or their most influential, feedback from that thing. And, let's face it, pricing on groceries affects everybody and every level. And, if you can tell people that there's a problem out there, well, yeah, there's definitely a problem out there. It's a problem that we don't have our own fossil fuels anymore. And we don't have things that driven down this cost. If we don't take care of that stuff, you're going to see costs go across the board. And we've seen it, record inflation of all time. I think I heard recently grocery pricing the last 2 years is up 40%. Like, that's because of all the contributing factors that go into that. And it's not the little grocery guy down the street trying to, buy a Ferrari. He's just trying to make it sort of the lights stay on. Like, our power bill, for instance, doubled in the last year. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars. And, as we continue to shut down our power plants because of, DEP, EEP, and all those people creating new regulations about, fossil fuels and everything else, all that means is we have less power production and more cost. And we're seeing that now. And so, if you're talking to a little grocery guy, fuel costs, all these costs are going up. Sales aren't going up. Sales are the same. And now you add that layer of cake in there of, well, we're going to set pricing. And then also the tax, the Trump era tax for small businesses. Right. If they take away those deductions, we're going to see a 30% uptick in taxes for small businesses that we can't afford. And the bigger businesses have such volume and sales, they can absorb that kind of hit and not really phase them. So when they start talking about those tax issues and everything else, what that creates is more bigger businesses and less medium to small businesses, which is basically monopolizing the market to a small number of larger chains.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that. And I think, thank you for that, for explaining that a little bit. Because regarding price controls, if they were put into place, let's say they were put into place tomorrow, how would that impact your store and the community you serve?
Well, you see that a little bit with WIC, as our local WIC programming, when they try to set pricing based on region and district. And the issue goes back to, how do you keep up with that? And, if you're telling me what I can sell something for all of a sudden, first off, what other industry other than a couple dictate in a free market what you can sell things for? I don't know of any.
No.
So, it's all about, it's a free market. So if you start saying we're going to do this to the pharmaceutical corporations and the grocery businesses that sell food, you're basically dictating what they can make. And so if you're going to take a really tight margin and make it worse, you're going to see massive food deserts. You're going to see so many food deserts that even the bigger guys that move into those areas won't be able to build stores fast enough.
Right. And in your experience, have you ever seen a place where price controls work out well for customers? Or, is it usually just it's a very different story?
You just don't see it. Because it's impossible. No government knows the exact cost of every business. And there's no way to start, unless you live maybe in a communist country where you can start dictating what pricing is. And at the end of the day, it's about market. What the market can bear, and the people decide that. For us, for instance, because of the downturn in the economy, we used to be able to sell a certain level of meat. We can't sell it anymore. So now we have to sell, a choice, lesser brand name because the other stuff's too expensive. And that's just, that's the market dictating to us what we sell.
Right. And your customers and what they can afford. Exactly. Okay. So running a grocery store, it must be definitely full of surprises. And what's one thing that would shock people about the day-to-day challenges of this business, of your business?
In our store, obviously, there's so many different facets. One really good grocery store once is 10,000 details. If you get 8,000 right, you're in business for one more day. And that's so true in our business. The biggest thing that we experience, is the biggest challenge beyond employee retention is, it's basically the competitiveness of the market. With so many different price formats and reward programs and everything else, is how do you stay relevant within a very digital and a very world where it's one bad review can end your existence. So by us focusing on social media and making sure that we're really active in that sphere, and again, back to being a community store, really leaning into that and becoming the community store. I really feel that keeps us very competitive because it does make that decision for the people that do care about it was, well, who do I want to support? Right. Because, a lot of people don't think about their money as a value of support. And when you keep it local and keep those dollars local and build that community, money stays more local than it would if it was in a bigger, district or a bigger city. It allows that region to grow. And what it eventually does is it creates more housing, it creates more jobs, and then it creates bigger investment from larger corporations. We're blessed here in Saxonburg. We have 3 major plants that are all ceramic based that have great employee portfolios that really help us keep the town alive. But, we're seeing more investment in Saxburg history in the last 30, 40 years. We're seeing 3 new apartment high rises being put in. And I equate that to making our place culturally relevant to the residents as a town and as a community to allow them to want to move here and be a part of that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, is there any advice that you'd give to other listeners who might be also small business owners in the grocery industry? Any advice that you have for them or tips and tricks that you want to share?
Yeah, as they all know already, it's one of the most difficult businesses, and small business is a very difficult thing. There's just so many facets of it. The key has always been surround yourself with really good people, take care of them, engage with your community, and obviously support candidates that support you. We've seen that time and time again.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, if you could wave a magic wand and could change things, like if you were like the government person for the day that can make all the decisions, what's one of the biggest things that you would change regarding some of the regulations or issues that you feel like are kind of passed down on you as a small business owner in that industry?
The hardest thing to do is to grow, and to grow physically in a physical space, whether that's construction or everything else. There's so many regulations now with, obviously with your accessibility issues, with your DEP and EEP issues, all this like crazy regulations that, again, it is fair, whether you're a guy or gal running $1 trillion business or somebody who's improving their back of their building. It's all the same thing, but because they're so excessive and because they are controlling in so many different ways and putting a lot of power into the people, not into the regulations and laws, what it does is it creates an inability to grow. You can't afford to. For instance, I have a little farm and I wanted to start cleaning it up a little bit, and I had to make sure that I didn't disturb too much land space on a farm, without having the government come crack down and shut me down and fire all of my guys. Like, it's a matter of you gotta continue to grow, but it's one of those things where if the government could refocus, get back to the pre-2020 tax system where we were all growing, everybody was doing good. I was hiring, under certain regulations, I went from hiring like 40 people up to 70. Now I'm back down to probably about 60. Where, it makes it easier to expand, easier to grow a business without so much regulation, and a better tax system where, not so much is being taken away from the smaller businesses. I think you'd see a great growth like we did, less than 4 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one. And speaking to that, that's one of the big priorities for Americans for Prosperity. We're working on REINS Act, actually, REINS, REINS Acts across the country, and pushing states and talking to legislators it would be a huge effort to deregulate industries across every state, and make it easier, like you said, for small businesses and others to be able to stay in business, but also to lower costs for everyone. And that's a huge win-win for everyone. So yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. And for listeners interested in stopping by or just joining one of your events, where can they find the latest information about what's going on at Sprankle's? Sprankle.
Yeah, so it's remember it is a sprained ankle. It's a lot easier. It says Sprankle. So we have at Sprankle Markets is our handle on Facebook and Twitter. We have a website, www.spranklesmarkets.com. And, we're constantly posting on all those platforms, informing our customers and fans of what's going on and, what activities we have coming up.
Well, I think that's great. I'm so happy to hear that you've embraced the social media thing. I think that's important. And I think it's helping you definitely stay relevant. I love that you're doing the events. I think that's also incredible, and really commend you for all that you're doing, especially in this more hostile political environment. So thank you so much, Doug, for being with us today, and appreciate all you're doing again for your community. Now, remember, listeners, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Get out there and defend freedom and liberty. If you'd like to get connected with an Americans for Prosperity state chapter, be sure to email Jeff at jeff@americanpotential.com. And this podcast is always working on stories to help keep you inspired and informed. The best way to stay connected is by liking and subscribing to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you know of a great story of someone that is working on expanding freedom and opportunities that we should share, please go to our website, americanpotential.com, and fill out our Share Your Story section. Thanks for being with us, and remember, your voice and your actions matter and make a difference.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.